Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Reverend Matt and I'm the Connectionalist. Today we got another video from Redeemed Zoomer, one that he put out recently called Why Denomination Hopping is Bad, which I don't know if I would say, like, look at somebody and say, you're bad for denomination hopping, but I definitely would call it a non-optimal Christian practice, right? Like, it's best to just really plant yourself in a community long-term if you can do that, right? But hopping around to different denominations is probably some sort of an indication of theological relativism, right? Like you just don't really have any theological convictions. You're just kind of jumping around. So I think that's probably non-optimal. I wouldn't call it bad, but Zoomer, that's not as good of a saying denomination hopping is non-optimal is not as good of a title for a YouTube video, I guess. So we're going to check out and see what Zoomer has to say about this. Make sure you go like and subscribe to him. He does a lot of really good work, but let's go ahead and dive right on in.
Hey guys, I'm Redeemed Zoomer, and today we're going to talk about denomination hopping, the problems with it, and why it can be sinful in extreme cases. So I run a large Christian Discord server, which has not been very good for my sanity, and that means I have seen lots of denomination hopping.
Yeah, God bless him for this. I think as Zoomer ages and is dealing with some of the intricacies of the human experiment, I guess we could say, intricacies of human development. I think there's a lot of young men and a lot of young people in these servers, and it is getting somewhat cantankerous. And some of the when you're not speaking about things face to face and you're in a Discord server just popping off at each other, it really becomes unhelpful. And so I understand why he's saying it's testing his sanity, and but I think it's important that we try to have some connection. But I get what he's saying by that, because it can be a difficult arena to debate thoughts in.
Many cases of people rapidly changing the denominations they publicly identify with. If I haven't talked to someone online in like 6 months, whether it's on Discord, Instagram, whatever, I can confidently say, if I check in on this person now, they're probably a different denomination now than the last time I checked in on them. And it's like a 70% accuracy. It's kind of scary. When I first started...
Okay, so not only is he saying it's bad, he's saying denomination hopping sinful. I'm open to this. I wouldn't immediately say this, but I'm open to the case. So let's see where it goes.
My Minecraft server, when I first opened it up to the public, that's when Eastern Orthodoxy was first getting really big online. So a lot of the people wanted to build in the Eastern Orthodox region of my Minecraft server. A lot of those people who originally built there are no longer Eastern Orthodox. Some of them have gone Catholic, Anglican, some of them reverted back to their old non-denominational church. Many of them were non-denominational the whole time, but were just LARPing as Eastern Orthodox.
So a lot of the reason for this is youth. A lot of the people who follow RZ, a lot of my audience are very young, and a lot of times when it's just teenagers, that's just teenagers, dude. Like teenagers, they're experimenting with all sorts of different identities. So I think we have to be careful, because we could easily say, oh, people are doing this. But when you realize through your YouTube analytics that your audience is like a lot of teenagers, you have to be a little bit more compassionate that they're trying on different identity hats, and that's okay. It's okay to kind of do that in your teenage years, because they're trying to claim the faith for themselves. So we don't want to immediately be like, you're a sinner because you're trying to claim the faith for your own and figure it out. So I'd probably rein back a little bit on like the sinful piece. But yeah, if you're like a full grown adult and you're just like doing this all the time, that's going to be a little bit more problematic. But I think the context here is very important, that a large portion of Zoomer's audience are teenagers to like 25 years old, probably, I would guess.
Online. So yeah, the point is, since I'm a Christian influencer, I've seen insane amounts of denomination hopping, and it's probably why I am more annoyed by it than the average person. So the good news...
Yes, very self-aware, Zoomer, to realize that, yeah, most people aren't thinking about this or really don't care because they're not dealing with it, right? But I think it's a fair video to make, because on YouTube, we're influencing people and their ideas. So I think it's important to be like, hey, guys, hey, maybe you should just like really try to decide kind of what you believe and then kind of stay in that church instead of like hopping around to different stuff, because it's probably not helpful for your spiritual journey, right?
Is more young people are interested in Christianity than in any of our lifetimes. This is the first time...
That's probably true for most of us. Not all of us, but most of us.
Traditional Christianity is actually the cool thing. Normally, traditional Christianity is like the uncool thing. It's what your grandma did. But now, young people are becoming more religious than old people. So that is good. Denomination hopping is a symptom of a good thing. It's a negative side effect of a fundamentally positive development in society. So
that's a pretty good way to look at it.
I'm not complaining about that.
Yeah.
But the bad news is that because it's getting popular, young people use it to LARP, which stands as
Using a term for those of you who are older, LARP is like, he puts a parentheses, live action role play. It's like the people in the park who like get the swords and armor and they dress up like medieval people and they actually fight with each other. They call that LARPing. I've actually LARPed before. When I was in college, I did, and I got hit in a place on my body where you don't want to get hit, and that was the last time I ever LARPed. Let's just put it that way. I was like, this is not for me. That hurt really bad. So, but it can be fun. But I get what he means by LARPing is there's people like pretending to be Eastern Orthodox and they're really not, right?
it stands for live action role playing. It means they use these religious identities more as external badges than things they actually have a personal long-term commitment to. So in the 2010s, Gen Z was insanely woke, and LGBT was the thing that everyone was getting involved in.
It's true. Yeah.
And, when I was in high school, lots of people would change their gender identity every week. It's like, okay, now I'm non-binary. Now I'm like trans fluid demi-queer or something like that.
Yeah, he's not entirely wrong about this, especially like the mid to late 2010s. This was like very in vogue and people were having a lot of conversation. It's because they were having these conversations about sexuality and about, there was a lot of folks that were like, talking about the non-binary part. Like a lot of people experience that, right? They don't feel like they're a woman or a man. Like a lot of people legitimately have that experience. And so because it was in the culture though, more people were adopting the badge and the identity that really end up just being like heterosexual people because it was in vogue, right? And so that definitely happens. When something's popular, it's going to be tried on as an identity by teenagers more so than unpopular things because they're trying to figure out themselves. So we have to have a little grace for that. But the point still stands is that like, yes, because Christianity is so becoming more popular among Gen Zers, we're seeing the same kind of thing with denominations. Which we just have to be sensitive, not to just judge people, but to really try to guide and direct.
Made up all these 76 genders. Actually, I was taught in health class in high school that there are 76 genders.
I wasn't taught that in health class, but I also was in high school and junior high from like 2005 to 2011. So that wasn't something people were really talking about as much.
Apparently there's new genders being invented every day, but now a lot of people are doing the same thing for denominations, just changing their external religious identity based on whatever they feel like this morning. So this is obviously better. It's obviously better for people to LARP with Christianity than for people to LARP with LGBT ideologies, but in both cases it can be kind of superficial and it can
I'm pro LGBT inclusion into the church, and even I agree with that statement, right? Like it's better for us to be focusing on our identity in Christ than our identity in anything else. But it can have some trickiness to it, which he's obviously addressing in his own way.
Lead to a lot of confusion. So it's not great in either case. So what is denomination hopping? I'm not saying, oh, you're a denomination hopper if you've ever changed your denomination, right? I'm not saying you're a denomination hopper if you were kind of denominationally homeless, just kind of going to a non-denominational church because that's what you're familiar with. And then once you started to learn about theology, you wanted to be committed to a particular tradition. Like, I know tons of people.
Yeah.
Most of you guys, I'm guessing, were raised...
That's most people. They'll change denominations once they do some more research for themselves, and they'll do it once. But yeah, people who are jumping around, that's a real thing that's happening.
Non-denominational, I wasn't, but most of you guys probably were. And because a lot of people are investigating traditional theology, they're switching from some non-denominational...
I've never denomination hopped. I was born in the United Methodist Church, and I imagine I will die in it.
megachurch to a more traditional form of Christianity, whether that's like Anglican or Catholic or Orthodox or Lutheran, that's fine. I get it. Because I think it's very good that people are digging deep into historic Christianity and not just going with the lowest common denominator stuff they're raised with. That's fine. But a side effect of this is sometimes they can rapidly change which form of traditional or historic Christianity they publicly identify with. So I don't think it's denomination hopping if you just weren't generally committed to any denomination, and then you committed yourself to a denomination. That's fine.
Okay.
I think it is denomination hopping if you regularly change what you are committed to. Because a lot of young people are just like 22, like my age, they just discover some new religious identity, and they'll ferociously defend it online and get into theological debates before they even read the Bible. I know lots of people who want to get into like apologetics. I know this guy who wants to get into Anglican apologetics. They haven't even read their Bibles yet, and they're debating like the filioque. Like, this is a 1,000-year-old debate. You're not going to resolve 1,000-year-old debates on TikTok.
Okay, so what RZ is talking about here, and I think he's discovering for himself is, well, now he's going to seminary, and so this will be part of his job if he becomes a pastor. But as a pastor, it's very important to have folks do things in the right order. Here's the thing. New converts never, ever teach. Ever. New converts can give their testimony in church, but they cannot teach. They're not qualified to teach. They don't know the first thing about teaching Christianity. They've only been living in it in a while, right? They haven't been living in it very long. There is a long period of time. What I say in my church is, you can't serve on administrative council unless you've been through Disciple Bible Study, which is like a 24-week overview of the scriptures. That's the baseline requirement to just be on, not only to teach, but to be on like our church's leadership, because it's not being exclusionary. It's just saying there's a certain amount of preparation and discipleship that must happen in order to be ready to take on these things, right? So that's something that I require. I require people to at least finish Disciple Bible Study or be currently enrolled in it before they come on to our administrative council. But yes, you have to do things in the right order. There are going to be people out there, they're like wanting to do apologetics and all this stuff. You can't put the cart before the horse. You really need to read your Bible first. You actually need to understand what you believe as a basic Christian first, and put basic Christian practices into place in your life before you're even close. Because not only is apologetics teaching, it is a higher level of teaching that, like, I would say actually a good amount of pastors are not prepared for. I have been a pastor for over a decade. And I studied the scriptures for 7 years. And I would say I probably am not like prepared to walk into a debate with like Trent Horn right now, right? I'm just not. I could get prepared because I have the education to prepare myself and know what I need to do. But apologetics is very difficult, and debate is a very difficult, and it's a much more advanced skill. Guys, I know if you're watching this, I know you like look up to, you may look up to myself or RZ or, some of these other apologists. You're probably not there yet. It's best to focus on being a part of your local church, serving, right, in your local church through kids ministry, youth ministry, food pantry, like doing Christianity, living the Christian life with people for a few years, taking as many Bible studies as you can. And when the time has come for you to be ready to teach, you need to talk to your pastor about that. Your pastor will be the best one to be able to help you discern whether or not you're ready to teach.
Especially if you haven't read the Bible yet. The people who were debating these issues, like the filioque or the miaphysitism, in earlier centuries, they knew their Bibles backwards and forwards. They were not random TikTok influencers who discovered these issues last week. So I think it is denomination hopping if you basically just discovered what Eastern Orthodoxy is 2 months ago, and now everyone's a heretic for not believing it. Or if you discovered what Eastern Orthodoxy was 2 months ago, and then discovered trad Catholicism 1 month ago, and then you changed your opinion on that, and now everyone's a heretic for believing what you believed 2 months ago,
It's hard to believe this is actually happening, but apparently it is. So
that's what I'd consider denomination hopping. Rapidly and or frequently changing the denomination or theological tradition you publicly identify with and support. So it's not denomination hopping if you are still investigating things, if you're visiting various churches. I know lots of people who are, maybe they're coming from a non-Christian background or from a denominationally homeless background, and they're just, they'll visit a Presbyterian church, they'll visit a Catholic church, they'll visit a Lutheran church. That's fine. If you're not making a strong commitment, if you're just exploring, it's fine to explore, it's fine to look into things. But if one day you're a very passionate Lutheran, one day you're a very passionate Anglican, one day you're a very passionate Catholic, that's what I would consider denomination hopping. Now, what's the max number of times you should change denominations? I can't give you a number, but generally the more times it happens, the worse it is. Because seriously, if someone's just a different thing every year, how are they going to have any long-term commitments to anything? So what is wrong with denomination hopping? You might think, oh, well, these are just a bunch of young people learning what they believe.
I think that's actually most of it.
Well, the Bible says to not be tossed to and fro by every wind of doctrine. So, if somebody is easily persuaded to believe new things, if somebody is easily talked out of their beliefs and talked into new beliefs, usually based on watching some TikToks or YouTube videos, then those same people could easily be talked out of Christianity. And
Yeah, I think that's true. I think there's some people that have a propensity to be more easily swayed, and you got to make sure you're watching balance. So if you watch a bunch of pro-Catholic or say pro-Catholic apologists, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, am I in the wrong church? Well, you need to go watch some like pro-Protestant stuff before you make your decision. You need to be approaching your learning in a balanced way.
have seen that quite a bit. A lot of the same people I've seen hop between denominations have apostatized, either given up on Christianity completely or been convinced by some atheist or Muslim YouTuber. I actually have seen that. So I think it's a sign of like weak character if somebody is very easily talked out of their beliefs, very easily talked into new beliefs. People should have more strength and more stability. It's not like you can ever change your ideas, but it needs to happen a lot more slowly, and it can't happen immediately after just exposure to some brand new ideas. Right? It's unhealthy in general, even for your secular life, because it hurts your ability to make long-term commitments. You know, the same people who have trouble committing to denominations might have trouble committing in relationships or
Sure.
things like that. People who are indecisive about denominations or religious matters are probably going to be indecisive about secular matters, and being too indecisive is just not good for your earthly flourishing. So I think it's a sign of good character to be able to make strong long-term commitments and not easily be talked out of them.
Yeah, I think that's a good, decent point. Yeah, I really don't have a lot of notes about that. Uh, Being able to defend what you believe in, being confident in what you believe in, and being open to new information and changing opinions over time is all a sign of good character. But not immediately, right? You watch one YouTube video and it completely changes your mind. I've had those experiences, but it's never about any core doctrinal piece. It's always like I'll watch one of these videos from Zoomer, or I'll watch something and it's like something I never thought of before, but it's like, yeah, now that you say it, I've never thought of it before, but I agree with you, right? I'm talking about like core doctrinal pieces, right? You can have your mind changed on like a very minor tertiary issue pretty quickly, but like on core doctrinal pieces, like you got to spend some time understanding what you believe in those things and spend time really thinking about that for yourself and claiming that faith for yourself. That's a really, really important part of having good character as a Christian. Yeah.
All right. The Bible also says that consistency matters. Jesus says, "Let your yes be yes
and your no be no.
be no. For whatever is more than these is from the evil one." He says that in Matthew 5:37. Now, is Jesus addressing modern denomination hoppers on Discord? No.
No.
But he is saying that the value of your yes matters. He was addressing people who like swear by this, swear by that. It's like, I swear on my Minecraft server I will not get a low taper fade. No. If
Yeah, man, he's on one today.
you have to swear by, these greater and lesser things, you're basically cheapening the value of your yes. Even if you say yes casually, that should matter. Even if you say no casually, that should matter. The value of your speech matters. So, like I
Yeah, that's a good interpretation of Matthew 5. Yeah, letting your yes be yes and your no be no. If you're so flighty and you're this thing one day, this thing the next, nobody's going to be able to trust your judgment, basically.
said, that's why if you're not really committed to any denomination and then you become committed, that's fine. But if you fiercely defend one religious tradition and then go back on that, and then go back on that again, well then the more times you do that, the less your words mean. Because if somebody has a reputation for consistently changing their beliefs,
Yep.
and now they're defending something, maybe they're defending Welsh Calvinistic Methodism, I don't know, you might ask, well, how do I know that you really mean what you say? How do I know you're not going to say something else next week? They often do say something else next week. And it's good for character. It's good for Christian development for your yes to mean something and for your no to mean something. If you...
I can hear him doing this in the background. He's like, I can hear him doing like the pulpit smash in the background.
regularly and frequently change your religious commitments, then your yes won't really mean much when it comes to religious commitments. If one day you say yes to this denomination, one day you say yes to that denomination, one day you say no to this, one day you say no to that. It's also very important for the flourishing of all denominations, of the flourishing of all church communities. And everyone of every denomination can support this mindset. Like, it is better for Protestant, Catholic.
I want to point out too that I find that it's common as well that like a lot of people just don't care about denominationalism. So it's not even that they're denomination hopping; they're just going to the church that they feel like fits them best at that time in their life, and they don't care about the theology, which is also problematic, right? Like you're like, oh yeah, like I've known people where they'll be like, yeah, when I was living in this city, I went to the Presbyterian church. Now I go to the Methodist church, but you know, I'm moving here. I'm going to go to I go to the Episcopal church. It's just like whatever church they like the preacher in, which is not the reason to select a denomination of a church you're going to. I actually think that's somewhat problematic. You should have a reason for it. That's good.
And Orthodox churches, if generally there's the same people in those churches for many generations, than if people are constantly bouncing back and forth between those churches. For any church community to be built up, it needs people who are committed long term. The reason
100%.
that we have,
from my pastoral perspective, this is 100% true. The longer term commitments you have from people, the more the church flourishes.
These historic churches is because people have had multi-generational commitments. It used to be very normal to go to the same church as your great-great-grandfather.
Yeah.
It used to be very normal to be baptized, married, and funeral, to have your baptism, wedding, and funeral in the same church. That doesn't happen anymore because everyone wants to get the new thing. Everyone wants to change. So the American consumeristic mindset, I feel like it does not value commitment.
I'm glad to see RZ, as big as he is on YouTube, is still like tripping over stuff in the background and he doesn't edit it out, because you'll often see in my videos, I'll just, if I make some kind of mistake or I got to plug in my headphones, I don't edit it out, just because I think that helps with the authenticity. Like I don't want it to be bad by any means, like bad quality, but like sometimes it's not going to improve the quality of the video enough for me to spend the 15 minutes cutting that 5-second piece out. It just doesn't matter.
It values novelty, and nobody cares about making anything last in the modern world. Everything we have is cheap. Our food is cheap, our belongings are cheap, our buildings are cheap.
Yeah.
We want speed above quality, and that's a problem.
Yeah,
so
I think he's giving kind of an overall cultural exhortation here, and I don't think he's necessarily wrong. So, yeah.
Like an earthly argument, but it's better for everyone if people are more slow to change what church they are affiliated with. Because if everyone's just bouncing around, nobody can build up any long-lasting communities. Nobody can build up any stable communities. There's also a lot of religious trends.
Oh, yeah.
And there has been a religious trend every single decade. In the 2000s,
it's true.
Contemporary Christianity was the trendy thing.
Oh, yeah. I grew up, I turned 8 in the year 2000, and I turned 18 in the year 2010. So this is my adolescence. My adolescence is the 2000s, not the 2010s. I was in college and seminary in the 2010s. I was an adult the entire time of the 2010s. So the 2000s are really where I come to age. And yeah, man, it was basically like, this was the rhetoric. I'm not kidding. If you do hymns, your church is going to die. Everything in the future is going to be guitar worship and contemporary music. That was massively naive. It was massively arrogant, and just ridiculous. But this is what people were talking about. They were basically like, if you're not doing this emerging thing in contemporary worship, your church is going to die forever, which is crazy in retrospect. But that's what was in the water at the time. That's how people were talking. I grew up going to a contemporary service that was started in the year 2000. Okay, so
something called the emergent church, and everyone during this time thought the emergent church was going to be the next big religious movement. They thought it was going to be the next Reformation, the next Great Awakening. They thought this is the future of religion. This is where a lot of contemporary churches come from, even though contemporary churches existed before this. It was sort of this like postmodern Christianity. Let's reimagine new ways to do church, bro. The emergent church, I mean, I was barely even alive for this.
I think that it's okay to reimagine new ways to connect to your community and new ways to do church. That's part of what I do in my job. But I get the critique of like, well, I think that sometimes we try to be cool or relevant when we really just need to be authentic to ourselves. And I think my church has found a lot of growth and stability in the community from being authentic to who we are instead of trying to be something we're not. And a lot of churches try to be something they're not. And that's one of their chief flaws. You got a church full of like, 200 people in worship, and it's been traditional for 60 years, and they try to start a contemporary service and nobody wants to go to it. So there's only like 10 people in it. And then it fails because no new people that go to the service want to join because there's only 10 people sitting in there, right? You're just trying to be something you're not, when it would be better for you to spend that energy and time and money in making your traditional worship the best that it could be. But if you have a church that has 100 people from your 200-person service that's willing to start a new contemporary service and you think it'll attract new people, I don't think there's anything really necessarily wrong with that. If you can do it, but it has to be authentic. It has to be something that people actually want to do. It has to be something that's a part of their identity, because if it's not, they're just not going to care about it. That's just the truth. And if the church doesn't care about it, they're not going to do it. So try not to turn this into a video about how to be a pastor, because very few of you are pastors. I'm just saying, like, you can't lead a church down. You can lead a church down a path they don't want to go for only so long. They eventually have to get on board and own it themselves, or it won't work.
But it saw traditional Christianity, the stuff that's trendy now, it saw traditional Christianity as, stale, superficial, and hypocritical.
Yeah. That's what people talked to. They were like, it's stale, it's old. We don't sing, we don't sing those old stuffy songs like the old people in church. Like, that's literally how people talked about it. It's actually really sinful now that I look back at it. I made comments when I was like RZ's age in the late 2000s and early 2010s. I made statements like that I regret because I was young and arrogant and stupid. And I've really come to see all of this completely differently, because authenticity really is the key. Not being relevant, not being cool. Relevancy and cool doesn't really matter. It's authentic to who you are, authentic to the Christian faith and its traditions. That's what people are looking for. They're looking for authentic human experiences where they can encounter the divine. That's what they're looking for.
Whereas the authentic stuff, the real Christianity, is this contemporary, postmodern church stuff. And then in the 2010s, you had the Young, Restless, and Reformed movement. Most of it was just Reformed Baptist. And even the Presbyterians who did participate in it were very, very...
I don't really see this. This, when he's talking about the 2010s, the Young, Restless, and Reformed was by and large way less influential than the 2000s movement towards contemporary worship. That was way more influential than this 2010 stuff.
Influenced by Reformed Baptists. But it basically defined the entire Reformed tradition as the 5 points of Calvinism. And people thought this might be the future of Christianity. But the Young, Restless, and Reformed movement basically...
Turns out the future of Christianity is probably the Christianity that we've been doing for 2,000 years. Come on, guys. It's not that difficult.
Centered around a few celebrity pastors. They had some scandals. It all burnt out. And now everyone in that movement has either gone to something more high church or something more liberal. Now, in the 2020s, there's an opposite movement to the emergent church. The emergent church movement saw traditional church as, superficial and contemporary church as authentic. Yeah. This trend in the 2020s sees the exact opposite. It sees contemporary churches as superficial and traditional churches as authentic.
Which is a overcorrection. It's a trend. It's a trend that's very good for my church because we do very high church. So it's been very good for us, but it's also superficial because there's nothing wrong with modern worship, really. I think you can take it too far. You can get too like lights and smoke with it to where it becomes entertainment and not about worshiping God. But there's also really, really classy and authentic ways to express ancient worship in a more contemporary and modern sense. It's very good, and a lot of churches do it very well. There's a church, the first church I ever served does contemporary music and communion every week, and they have two like more modern songs. Then they'll play a hymn, but they'll play the hymn to guitar. And so they'll always have like an ancient hymn, but then they do communion every week in a very ancient and historic practice. And they call it the ancient future is what they call it. Their kind of approach. And it's been very good for them. They were one of the fastest growing Methodist churches in Oklahoma, basically for the last 20 years. They went from nobody in the late 90s to they worship like 700 now. It's a pretty big church. And so that worked very well for them. So you can't say that like, there isn't an authentic way to do that honors God, because they're still doing the sacraments every week. They're doing these really ancient parts of the faith very, very well.
Now the cool thing is to be in whatever church is as trad as possible. Usually this means Roman Catholic or Eastern Orthodox. Yeah. For some reason, everyone forgets that Oriental Orthodoxy exists. There's some high...
Well, because it doesn't exist in high numbers here in the U.S., which is where most of his audience is.
Church Protestants that try and be like diet Catholicism. Some people might accuse me of that. But
diet Catholicism.
It's like, I'm not like some high church Anglican who's trying to have a Protestant rosary and Protestant icons. Like, I'm actually, low church, basically. Presbyterians are traditionally low church as far as magisterial Protestants go. It's just that we seem high church compared to this non-denominational chaos.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And Methodism, like I'm pretty high church in Methodism. We're pretty high church at my church in Methodism, and pretty high church, but lower than the Anglicans. And I realized this when I went to a conference last weekend at Episcopal Church. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is definitely a little bit more stand up, sit down, high church traditional than what we do. The Methodist Church is basically the best way to describe it liturgically. If you go to a traditional or kind of a higher church Methodist church, you're basically getting the down home country version of the Anglican Church. That's how I always explain it. The down home country version.
But I'm not trying to advertise some niche high church Protestantism.
Sure.
I'm trying to advertise generic grandma boomer mainline Protestantism that was America's dominant religion for most of its history. Right? So nobody thinks they're following a trend. I've seen this trend all the time. I see lots of people converting for the trend. No individual who converts for a trend thinks they are converting for the trend.
Sure.
So if this is you, you're not going to think it's you. If this is you, you're going to think, oh, brother, I truly believe this. I know everyone else is going for the trend, but I believe this.
He is animated. You can tell this is bothering him, which I just realized I'm covering up Zoomer. So let's go over here. I just realized I'm covering him up. Sorry, man. He's getting pretty animated here. It's best to not make videos when you're super hyped, which I've done. Let's be clear. All of you have seen my videos where I'm super amped about something or upset about it. And I end up not doing the best job maybe I could possibly do. Oh, whoops. I need to click play.
Everyone thinks that. But you have to realize that group psychology is real. And your thinking is influenced by the group much more than you think it is. Hegel was right that communities do have collective minds. There is a zeitgeist.
Absolutely.
There is a spirit of the age. In the 2000s, everyone felt this push towards contemporary Christianity.
He wasn't even there, but he's right about this. Because I was there, and I can tell you right now, and all of you of a certain age know, in the 2000s, man, it was like, you better have guitars and lights or your church is toast, which just wasn't the case.
And now in the 2020s, everyone's feeling this pull towards Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy. It's the spirit of the age. It's the zeitgeist. It's peer pressure. It's groupthink. It doesn't mean nobody in this movement is authentic. It does mean that you have to beware of the influence that religious trends have on your psychology.
Absolutely.
Because in 10 years, there's going to be a different religious trend. You know, if it were up to me, everyone would want to become like a generic boomer mainline Protestant with, 4-part hymns and organs and the First Methodist and Presbyterian Church downtown.
But that's probably not going to be the case. Although the move towards more traditional worship in the culture among Christians has been very good for my church, and it's going to be good for a lot of traditional churches out there. It will be. It'll be good for them.
But, I'm not God. I don't shape the future, so It's probably going to be something else that I find kind of cringe. Okay.
And to be fair, I'm a firm believer that God often works through the cringe. God will use trends and those kinds of things to make disciples, right? How many people came to Jesus Christ during that movement towards contemporary worship that maybe otherwise would not have, right? God works in the cringe sometimes, yeah.
So this is something that might be kind of controversial, but I think it's generally better to be consistently in the wrong denomination than sometimes inconsistently in the right denomination.
Okay.
Like, I'm Presbyterian. I'd rather somebody be consistently Lutheran and committed to Lutheranism than, bouncing back and forth between Presbyterian and Lutheran, because it's more important for them to have, a stable conscience than to just be shifted around by...
I don't think this is super controversial. I get what he's saying there. I think most of us get what he's trying to say here.
All winds of doctrine. Now, another thing I notice, and I don't think this is good, is that everyone has a tendency to rebel against their upbringing.
This is true, 100%. I was a youth minister for a long time. I still do a lot of youth ministry. This is 100% true. Okay, all right, RZ, I'm pausing you because I'm going to pop off for a second. Okay, one of the most absolute, here we go. You ready for the zoom in? One of the most absolute frustrating things ever as a Methodist minister is when I spend 5, 6, 7 years, which I've done, raising up Methodist students, And I don't mind that they go into like a non-denom church. Many of them end up leaving the Methodist church and they go to a non-denom church. That bothers me a little bit if I'm being completely honest, because it's like, we raised you in Wesleyan Arminian theology, and like it seems like you're just choosing the local church that has the best young adult group, right? Whatever. It's more important that you're in a church. I can live with that. What drives me absolutely bonkers is when I spend 5, 6, 7 years raising up a student as a disciple and they go to a non-denom church and they get rebaptized. That makes me want to flip my table over. I get so upset about that. And I don't know if I should be getting that upset about that, but I do, because it's like, you didn't need to be rebaptized. Like, there was a couple of students that I was close to that did this. I almost texted them being like, why are you mocking God, dude? Like, I didn't do it, but I thought about it. I wanted to text like, why are you mocking God with this rebaptism nonsense? Like, you know that your baptism was efficacious. You know that your baptism was good. God didn't mess up. We talked about this. So it felt like more like you wanted to get dunked so you could get the blue t-shirt that they hand out to people that they baptize in the kiddie pool on Sunday morning at the local non-denom church. And you just wanted to be a part of the zeitgeist of that. It doesn't really feel like you really thought this through in the theology of your baptism. So that stuff absolutely drives me nuts, because that's a rebelling against upbringing, and that 100% happens. But there's really not much you can do about it, because that is something that has always been the case. Okay. All right. That's my little diatribe. Back to the video.
Everyone wants to rebel against what they're raised with.
That's true.
The most ferocious, Catholics tend to be raised evangelical. The most ferocious anti-Catholics are often raised Catholic. Like, bro, I literally went to Catholic school. I'm the...
I had somebody tell me that I was wrong about Catholic theology, and I wasn't. I was 100% right. And then they defended themselves where they said, I went to Catholic school. And I was like, yeah, that doesn't matter. You're still wrong. You don't understand Catholic theology. I had somebody tell me that you don't have to believe the dogmas to be Catholic. And I was like, I don't really know what to tell you, dude. You do have to believe the dogmas to be Catholic. You're not allowed to not believe the dogmas. Well, I went to Catholic school. Yeah, well, they taught you wrong at Catholic school. Okay, I'm pretty sure I'm correct about this, right? So, yeah, there is that sense. Yes, that you will hear those things.
Expert on Catholicism.
Right.
And the opposite of that is, bro, I went to Waters of Life non-denominational church. I'm literally the expert on Protestantism. And we see this globally. Historically,
and that's not as much like denomination hopping as it is just like, that's arrogance. We've all had those arrogant moments in our lives where we are a little overconfident in our knowledge or abilities. We've all had those, and I definitely have. And as I've aged, I've gotten better at recognizing that within myself.
Protestant countries like England are now going more Catholic, and historically Catholic countries like Latin America are now going like Pentecostal and charismatic. The common theme is that because of the internet, everyone's exposed to new ideas.
That's
and
true.
Everyone thinks
we're exposed to too many ideas. I don't think the human brain can handle it. If I'm being honest, most of us can't handle the amount of information that we're processing, and then that's a whole different video.
The ideas they were raised
as I'm contributing to the data stream, right?
with are stale, and the grass is always greener on the other side.
Yeah.
I think this impulse is sinful because it violates the 5th commandment to honor your mother and father.
Yeah.
Now, if your mother and father are not Christian, you gotta follow God before your parents. But the bias should be in favor of your parents rather than against it.
That's a decent argument, right? Like, look, at the most, you got to remain in church. In some capacity, you got to remain in church. But yeah, I think it's fair that as an honor to your mother and father, your first bias should probably be towards what they raised you in. I think that's a reasonable ask of children, but not requiring them to remain in the denomination of their parents. Yeah.
Right now, it seems like everyone is biased against what they were raised with. It's like everyone's been inoculated.
That's not new. That's not new.
Against what
that's you can find that in Ecclesiastes, right? Like, there's nothing new under the sun, right? Like, nobody ever wants to do what their parents did, right? Like that's like a universal human experience going back 40 centuries.
They're raised with, but they haven't been inoculated against new ideas, so they're more susceptible to new ideas. I think, this is another thing Hegel was right about, that things tend to evolve into their opposites, and especially because Hegel's ideas have influenced the modern world. Often being raised firmly in something will lead you to be very radicalized against that thing you were raised with.
Not me. Still, I'm a Methodist minister, raised a Methodist. So, obviously, not for all of us.
Anyway, so when is it okay to convert? I'm not saying you can never change denominations. I mean, I haven't changed denominations, so I'm better than you. I'm kidding. My only conversion was going from non-religious to PCUSA Presbyterian. That happened like 8 years ago. Sometimes you will change denominations, but only if you feel like that is the only way to obey God.
This is probably the best slide he's made here, and I'm going to move myself again because I want you to be able to read it. This is a pretty solid. This is pretty solid here. I want you guys to be able to read it because I do think we need to have the discussion of like, when is it okay to convert? Because this is actually helpful advice, I think, here.
Only if you feel like it is more important to change denominations than to be consistent in what you have said, especially if you have, previously made a firm commitment to a denomination you're now leaving. So it's okay to change denominations at times.
I wonder why he has the arrow. Same decision-making care as something like this. Okay, all right.
But you shouldn't do so lightly. It should feel like moving to a new country.
Okay.
And less like
I get what he means.
Changing a new favorite Netflix show.
Right.
Or changing your favorite fast food restaurant. Because sometimes...
Yeah, you should take it as seriously as like a decision to move to another country. I think that's actually the right amount of weight to put on it.
Sometimes people move between countries. I haven't done that. Most people don't do that. Sometimes people do move between countries, but it's kind of rare to like live and identify with a different country every week. It's like, today I'm American, tomorrow I'm French, the next day I'm Japanese, and now I'm African. That doesn't happen because everyone knows it's a very big thing to change what country you live in. I think changing denominations should have the same mindset. Now, a lot of people might be confused because they're overstimulated with all this denominational propaganda they're seeing from every side.
That's why I don't spend a bunch of time like being like, you should be a Methodist because the Methodists are right about everything, right? Like I definitely make videos where I'm like, why you should be Methodist if you're considering changing or you're non-religious, right? But I'm not going to spend all my time just like boosting Methodist propaganda because I don't think that's helpful.
If that's you, don't give up. Just pray and be patient. All these religious trends will die out, but the words of God will never die out. So it's not like you can never change your mind, but make sure you do so slowly. The Bible praises people that are patient, and it says it's not good to be hasty. It's not good to make decisions rapidly. But, I'm glad that this is happening because it is a sign that people are getting more interested in Christianity. So that is objectively good.
It's good.
So thank you guys for watching this video, and as always, I will see you all later. God.
All right. Pretty good video. I thought Zoomer went through most of the major issues with a lot of grace. He obviously got pretty upset and passionate about some of the things, but I understand why he is arriving at this topic so passionately. So I thought he did a pretty good job talking about like you really just need to treat changing denominations or changing your tradition like you would treat moving out of the country, right? It's a big decision, like who you're going to marry, right? That's a big decision. You need to treat it like that. Don't treat it like what you're going to have for lunch on a Tuesday, right? That's not a big decision. So you really need to think about it, work through that, pray, be patient. I think he's absolutely right about that. So I thought this video was actually pretty helpful. So make sure you go like and subscribe to Redeem Zoomer. He does a lot of good stuff. And if you like my commentary today, make sure you like and subscribe to my channel as well. That's the best thing you can do to help. And many of you who watch are not subscribed yet, so please subscribe if you can. But I'm Reverend Matt, and I'm the Connectionalist, and I'll see you again. Bye-bye.